Hey everyone, this is Pete. It's been a little while since we spoke, so I thought we'd kick off with just a bit of sort of free-form discussion about where I've been, what I've been up to, what's going on with the channel going forward, and what I'm doing in my professional life, because there's been a few changes of late, which is mainly the sort of reason for my absence. Is I'm sort of, for want of a better word, getting my affairs in order. Don't want to make it sound like I'm dying or anything like that, but no, there's been a few changes in my sort of day-to-day professional life. Nothing bad, nothing to worry about or anything like that. It's just sort of focusing on different things. So I wanted to start by talking a little bit about that. So most of you will probably know that for the last couple of years, I guess it is, I think 2.5 years, something like that, I've been in charge of a website known as Rice Digital. Now, this is a specialist publication that mainly focuses on Japanese and Southeast Asian games and games that are inspired by those things. So very similar to the sort of things that I covered on my own site, Moe Gamer, when I was actively updating that. Alongside that, I've been doing some work for Blaze Entertainment, makers of the Evercade retro gaming platform. I've been working on some manuals and some digital content and some social media posts and all sorts of things like that. And over the course of probably the last 6 months or so, it's become apparent that the plans for Blaze and Evercade are increasingly ambitious. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of really exciting developments in that. A lot of really exciting licenses that have been signed up, some of which have been announced, some which haven't been as yet. So I won't be revealing any of that today. But suffice to say, there's a lot more work in that regard than there has been. And it was becoming apparent to me that there just wasn't the time to juggle the two roles anymore. Particularly because Rice had a couple of freelancers move on. So there was increasing demands on my time to actually make sure that there was stuff posted on the site every day. Now, rather than sort of do a half-assed job on both of those things, what I wanted to do is focus on one of them and make sure I did the best possible job I could on there. And thinking about it on balance, the area where I feel my skills, my knowledge, my talents, all that sort of thing are best used is on the Evercade side of things. Now, this might come as a surprise to some of you who have known how passionate and enthusiastic I've been about writing for a long time, particularly in the games press. I've told this story a few times before on my personal blog and a couple of times on videos as well. But a recap for the benefit of those who don't know. I grew up surrounded by home computers and consoles and all that sort of thing, and also by writing. So from a very early age, I knew both my dad and my brother as writers for an Atari magazine called Page 6. And later on, I went on to contribute to that magazine as well. And from that point on, when I saw that my brother, who is 10 years my senior, move on and have a very successful and prolific career in the games press, working his way from freelancer to staff writer to editor to publisher to whatever he does now. It's VP of publishing, I think, at IGN he is now. But yeah, he's been through lots of different roles, and his career was always a big inspiration to me, because when I was a kid, I always wanted to sort of follow along in his footsteps and my dad's footsteps to a certain extent, by having my writing about games get published. And as I say, I had a couple of contributions to Page 6 magazine published, and following on from that, I also had some contributions to the official Nintendo magazine, PC Zone magazine, and a few other places, some of which were on the internet, some of which were in print. And yeah, it always gave me a great sense of pride to have those things published and be able to show them to people and to say, look, I did this. In more recent years, that kind of magic's been going away. Not for the loss of love of writing. I still love writing about stuff, but it's just that sense of pride doesn't feel like it's there anymore, because when you show something like that to someone these days, the reaction is nothing more often than not. I've shown things to people who are my close friends and they say, look, I've written this, and I've had no reaction from them whatsoever. And that's a little upsetting, to be perfectly honest, especially when I've worked hard on a piece and I've researched it and I've gone through and made sure that it's as thorough as possible and as informative as possible, and that it doesn't fall into the traps of getting overly opinionated about whatever the issue du jour is and whatever. So when you work hard on something like that, excuse the noise outside, the window's open because it's very hot in here. When you work hard on something like that and you get no reaction whatsoever from it, it's extremely demoralizing. It's extremely frustrating. And it makes you feel like there's almost not a place for that sort of thing anymore. It makes you feel like people just don't want to read that anymore. And I'm sure that's not true, because there are outlets out there that do still exist, that do still publish that sort of thing. A good example is run by a friend of mine, Matt Sainsbury from Digitally Downloaded. He still puts out lengthy sort of criticism pieces of video games that are written from the perspective of kind of artistic criticism rather than product reviews, which is what you tend to get on more mainstream sites. So there's still a place for that. It's just not the mainstream. And Rice Digital wasn't a mainstream site by any means or anything like that. But even there, I was sort of starting to feel like, well, do people really want to see this? Do people really care? And as I say, if it's that difficult to get people who are supposedly my closest friends to care about what I've written, what hope is there for like a broader audience or something like that? Now, I won't go off on a long tangent or a long rant about social media and collective attention spans or anything like that, but it's all tied into that sort of thing, really. And it's frustrating. And so part of my decision for moving over full time to the Evercade side of things was related to that. I just want a break, possibly permanently, from writing about stuff professionally, because it doesn't have that same magic. And that's really saddening to me, because I spent so much of my life obsessed with this idea of wanting to be part of the games press, of wanting to write about games professionally and that sort of thing. And by the time I got there, the games press I wanted to write for didn't really exist anymore, which is a real shame. So anyway, what that means is that now that I work full-time on Evercade and have the hat to prove it, I can focus more on passion projects. So I may well start writing some stuff on Mario Gamer again, though I haven't decided yet. I've been doing a few bits and pieces on my personal blog of late, which is great, because I know some people used to follow that and still do follow that. So I'm sure they've enjoyed starting to see some activity over there again. And it leaves a bit more free time to do some videos as well. And what it means for my own enjoyment of games is actually rather a positive thing, because it means that I can do what I want, pretty much. There's no pressure to sort of conform to what the big trends are of the time. There's no pressure to cover the latest and greatest thing. There's no pressure to rush through things to cover them as soon as possible. What doing things on my own terms means is that I can focus exclusively on the things that I want to cover. I can take as much time over them as I want. I can do things at my own pace, in as much detail as I want. And that's ultimately going to be a pretty positive thing. And so that sort of ties in with the channel going forward. What I want to do with this channel is I want to continue celebrating the games that I enjoy. What I don't want is for it to feel like a job, an obligation, something that causes me sort of a feeling of bitterness when it comes time to record stuff. That should never be part of a creative project. You should never feel bitter about a creative project that you've got on the go. And so I've been taking a bit of a break. Partly for the reasons I've just outlined, to sort of get everything in order while these sort of changes are going on in my professional life. And also partly to just sort of try and take a step back and I guess, relieve my frustration at what online content has become. Because I hate the word content. I fucking hate the word content. I hate it when people describe hard work that people have put into creative projects as content. Now, no offense to any of you who have previously said, oh, I love your content, but don't. Just say, I really enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed this article or whatever. Because my beef with the word content is that it ties in with the endless churn of content that we have online these days. There's been some big controversies in the games press just lately over several outlets and publishing companies starting to hire or attempting to hire AI specialists. And by AI specialist, I don't mean someone who can make AI routines and algorithms and that sort of thing. I mean people who will use AI to churn out crappy articles on a daily basis to the tune of 200 to 250 articles per week. Now, no one wants that. We've already got so much SEO optimized crap on the internet right now that fueling the noise with AI generated stuff, which you can't even guarantee to be accurate anyway, as has been proven by people who've shown the fallibility of AI writing stuff. No one wants that. And so there's been perfectly justifiable resistance to the idea of outlets starting to use AI to generate their material. But this is what I mean. People were thinking of the stuff on a website as content and not as worthwhile features and articles that you should be reading and going back to months later in some cases. I've got a bunch of old magazines that I keep around, including a pretty much complete run of Page 6, a few Ace magazine, some official Nintendo magazines, some PC Zones, and I keep them around not just because I have stuff that I and members of my family have written in them in some cases, but because I still enjoy reading the stuff in them. Now, the reason I enjoy reading the stuff in them today is not necessarily the same reason that I enjoyed reading them back in the day, but those things are still fun to read. They're still well written. They're still interesting. And the content culture that we live in today doesn't think about that. The content culture that we live in today just wants to churn out those 250 articles a week. It wants a daily Wordle solution. It wants a daily crossword solution. It wants one article for every single shrine in The Legend of Zelda. And it's just not conducive to the same sort of more protracted reading experience that we used to have with magazines and that sort of thing. Yes, magazines had their own little short snippets and news articles and that sort of thing. But this sort of... There's no reason to go on a website and just sit and read it like a magazine anymore. You just go to one when someone links you to a specific thing. Or when someone... when you're searching for something specific and you want the answer to, say, one of those shrines in The Legend of Zelda or whatever. And like I said, that's a bit saddening. And it's frustrating on YouTube as well, because I see so many YouTubers who are just falling back on the exact same formats. It's like, I tried the most viral recipes on TikTok. These are the funniest TikToks I've ever seen. I fucking hate TikTok, if that wasn't already abundantly clear. I bought $100 worth of thrifted clothes and I'm going to do this. And it's just boring more than anything else. I guess you may well think the same sort of thing about an old fart going through old Atari games and playing them for the first time in some cases, or revisiting them for the first time in 20 or 30 years in some other cases as well. But, you know, I make an effort so that each and everything that I do is different and unique and stands up on its own merits and is worth going back to watch again at some point in the future. And I know a lot of other wonderful video creators, bloggers, all manner of other content creators who are working hard like that on a daily basis, and their stuff just doesn't get the recognition that it deserves because they're not gaming the algorithm. They're not playing the game. They're not doing the shocked face. And it's sad because for all the frustration you can feel with that, it sometimes feels like that you can't make a difference. But like, the strongest statement I feel I can make with my own stuff is just to carry on doing what I want to do, because as relatively small as my audience is, there are people who show up regularly and watch my stuff. There are people who go back through my back catalogue and watch every single episode and comment on them. Yes, I've seen you. And that's encouraging. I'm never going to have 1 million subscribers. I'm never going to have 1 million views per video on my latest thrift store haul or whatever. But I'm okay with that. I've always expressed this to other people as, if you think about if you were doing a presentation at your local village hall and you were giving a talk about how good Star Raiders is or something like that, and if 20 people showed up to that, you'd be thrilled. So when a couple of hundred people show up, or a couple of thousand, as in the case of my most recent Star Raiders video, show up, that's incredible to me. That's fantastic. I'm perfectly satisfied with that. I'm not doing this to try and make some money. Yes, the little bit of pocket money I occasionally get from ad revenue is lovely, but that's not the reason I'm doing this. I'm not putting out videos to try and maximize stats, to get views or the highest click-through rate or whatever other acronyms and metrics YouTubers measure their success by. And so basically this is a long-winded way of saying that I'm going to sort of try and go a bit kind of back to what I was doing before to a certain degree. I'm not going to do quite as many things per week as I was doing before, but I'm trying to go and I'm going to try and do maybe one a week or so ish. I'm not going to make any commitments to that because, like I say, I don't want this to become a job. I don't want this to become something that I feel bitter about or something I feel obliged to do, because this is supposed to be fun. But I do want to take aim to sort of try and do maybe one thing a week at least. And to give that a bit of structure and to give me a bit of inspiration, I've got a few ideas. So the first one is something that I've been meaning to do for a long time, which is a new series that I'm calling Atari A to Z Anthology. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to go through the Atari 2600 output of Activision, Imagic and Absolute Entertainment as chronicled in the various Activision Anthology releases. Now, I'm not actually going to use Activision Anthology itself, because going back and fiddling with it recently, both in terms of the PS2 version and the PC version, the emulation in it actually isn't very good. The PC version in particular, which has the most games, unfortunately has really laggy sound, and it's very distracting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the games list from Activision Anthology, but I'm going to emulate those games using modern emulation. And I'm going to emulate them because it's just easier to capture footage from. I have a working 2600, but it's not in a position that I can capture footage from it easily. So we'll be doing it through emulation because that's just the easiest way to do. An Atari 2600 emulation is pretty much flawless these days anyway. So that's the first plan, Atari A to Z Anthology. That will be going through all of the Activision, Imagic and Absolute Entertainment games. Plus there's a few homebrew games on the PC release of Activision Anthology as well that are worth taking a look at. Alongside that, I've recently bought myself, wait for it, a Sega Master System. And this is a system that I've been interested in for a while, for various reasons. Chief among which is that I got talking to another YouTuber called Dudley of Yesterteen, who runs a wonderful channel that goes back through old games magazines. So the stuff he produces is very much close to my heart. And Dudley's a big fan of the Sega Master System. And I got talking to him about the Master System. And he was kind enough to send me a couple of games to start off my collection. He sent me a copy of Castle of Illusion and The Ninja. Now, fortunately, I didn't have anything to play them on until yesterday at the time of recording, as it happens. But now I've got a working Master System, and I've been playing through some of these games, and I kind of love it. So, the Sega Master System is a platform that I think is very underappreciated because it was very much, it's hard to say it was even second fiddle to the NES in North America, because it was pretty much a footnote in North America. But in Europe, where I'm from, it was huge. It was a big success. And given how America-centric a lot of retro gaming material on YouTube is these days, I think there's some value to going through the games of the Sega Master System and seeing how good they were, seeing how well they hold up, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to sort of do a more loose series on that one. I haven't decided on even if it's going to have a name yet, or if it's just going to be a series of Sega Master System videos. But I'm going to cover some Sega Master System games, starting very soon alongside the Activision stuff. And then various other Atari 8-bit and Atari ST stuff I'm going to just sort of do when I feel like it, basically. I'd like to do some more of the public domain library stuff for both Atari ST and Atari 8-bit. Those will be occasional rather than necessarily a regular thing. I'm going to try and make the Activision thing, the anthology series, the most regular of all these things. So if I've only got time to make one video a week, I'll try and make it that one, because that's sort of got a ready-made string of things that I can research, produce videos on, record the gameplay for, and that's pretty easy to produce. And then other stuff I just fit around that, basically. So that's the plan. After a bit of lengthy ranting about the position we're in. So apologies for that. This has gone on a little bit longer than I intended it to, but these things always seem to do that. But that is an update of where I am, what's going on with the channel, what's going to be happening from here on, and I hope you enjoy it, basically. So, just remains for me to say, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.